Commander Nathan Price stood near the large window of the space station called Horizon. He watched the stars move slowly in the darkness of space. It had been 37 years since humans first met other alien races and joined what they called the Galactic Community. During all that time, Nathan had learned one important truth. Humans were different from everyone else out there. The other species were afraid of humans. They never said it directly in meetings or formal talks. Everyone was polite and respectful when they spoke. But Nathan could see it in their behavior. The Valkorians would jump back a little when a human walked into a room. The Zephrons, who had bodies made of light and crystal, would make themselves less bright around humans. Even the Korthax warriors, who had conquered many star systems, kept their distance from human ships in space. The reason was simple. Earth was what the aliens called a death world. It was a planet so dangerous and violent that most species could not understand how anyone could live there. The gravity on Earth was twice as strong as what most aliens considered normal. The air was full of oxygen, which could burn and destroy things. The oceans had so much salt in them that they would poison most alien life. Yet humans not only survived on Earth, they loved it and called it home. Because humans came from such a harsh world, they were naturally stronger and tougher than most other species. They could handle pain better. They could keep fighting when others would give up. They healed faster from injuries. All of this made other aliens nervous around them. Lieutenant Kelly Harper walked across the metal floor of the station toward Nathan. Her boots made clicking sounds with each step. She was 28 years old and one of the youngest officers working on the station. But she was smart and good at her job, which is why she had earned her position. She carried a small electronic tablet in her hands. "Commander, we just got a message. It is a distress call from the Quellan system in Sector 9. Nathan took the tablet from her and looked at the information on the screen. The Quellans were a peaceful race. They never fought wars or hurt anyone. They were known across the galaxy for being traders and artists. Their home planet was famous for its beautiful gardens that floated in the sky and buildings that looked like music made solid. "What kind of emergency is it?" Nathan asked. Kelly looked worried. "Raiders attacked them. The message says a Kragnoth war fleet is destroying their planet right now. They are asking for help from anyone close enough to reach them." The Kragnoth. Nathan felt his jaw muscles tighten with anger. The Kragnoth were a species of warriors and pirates. They traveled from system to system, attacking peaceful planets and taking whatever they wanted. Then they moved on to find new victims. The Galactic Council had tried to make peace with them for many years, but the Kragnoth only respected violence and power. "Have any other species answered the call for help?" Nathan asked. Kelly shook her head. "No, sir. The nearest Valkorian fleet is 3 days away. The Zephron defense ships say they have technical problems and cannot come. The Korthax said it is not their responsibility to help." Nathan was not surprised. This was typical of how things worked in the galaxy. All the alien species had nice words about cooperation and helping each other, but when real danger came, they found excuses to stay away. They were too afraid to risk their lives for people they did not know. "What about us?" Nathan asked. "How long would it take for our ships to reach the Quellan system?" 14 hours if we use maximum speed, sir. But Commander, we only have one destroyer close enough to help. The ship is called the Victory. Captain Lisa Grant is waiting for your orders." Nathan looked at the star map on the screen. He could see a blinking light showing where the Quellan home planet was. One human destroyer against an entire fleet of Kragnoth warships. The odds were terrible. Any military expert would say it was impossible to win. It would be suicide to try, but that was the difference between humans and most other species. Humans did not leave people to die when they could help. They did not calculate the odds and walk away when things looked bad. They tried anyway, even when success seemed impossible. "Tell Captain Grant to get ready to leave immediately," Nathan said. "And wake up the rest of the fleet." Kelly looked up with surprise on her face. "Sir, do you mean the entire fleet?" "That would require activating all the reserve ships. The Death Fleet protocols." "Yes, that is exactly what I mean, Lieutenant. If the Kragnoth want to attack peaceful people who cannot defend themselves, then it is time they learn something. They need to understand what happens when you make the Deathworlders angry and force them to go to war." Kelly stood straight and saluted. "Yes, sir, I will send the orders right away." Nathan turned back to look at the stars through the window. Somewhere out there, innocent people were dying. They had called for help, and almost everyone had ignored them. But not humanity. Never humanity. That was not who they were. The other species called humans Deathworlders like it was an insult or a warning. They saw humans as dangerous creatures from a violent planet. Maybe that was true. But it also meant humans understood something that most peaceful species had forgotten. Sometimes protecting the innocent required being willing to fight. Sometimes doing the right thing meant accepting risk and danger. Nathan thought about all the times he had sat in council meetings, listening to aliens debate and discuss while people suffered. They were so civilized, so advanced. Yet when it mattered, they did nothing. They had forgotten that civilization was not just about comfort and safety. It was also about having the courage to stand up for those who could not stand up for themselves. The Quellans were going to learn something today. They were going to discover that there was one species in the galaxy that would answer when they called for help. One species that would come running when others turned away. And the Kragnoth were going to learn something too. They were about to find out why even the strongest warriors in the galaxy were afraid of the humans from Earth. Nathan pulled up a communication screen and entered a special code. Within seconds, signals were being sent across human space. Deep in hidden bases and secret locations, ancient machines were starting to wake up. Crews who had been sleeping for decades were beginning to stir. Ships that had waited silently in the dark were powering up their systems. The Death Fleet was awakening, and once it arrived at the Quellan system, nothing would ever be the same again. Far beyond the planet Mars, hidden in a field of asteroids, the reserve fleet had been waiting for 30 years. These ships were humanity's secret weapon, a backup plan in case Earth ever faced a threat that could destroy it. There were 147 ships in total. Some were small and fast corvettes. Others were massive dreadnoughts with weapons that could crack planets. All of them had crews who had volunteered to sleep in special chambers until the day they were needed. That day had finally come. Captain Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the destroyer Victory. She watched as codes and commands appeared on the screens all around her. She was a veteran, someone who had fought in the contact wars when humans first encountered hostile aliens. She had seen what humans could do when someone pushed them too far. She knew what her species was capable of in battle. "Give me a status report," Lisa said to her crew. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Jake Morrison, looked up from his station. "The reserve fleet is starting to wake up now, Captain. The crews are coming out of their sleep chambers. All the weapon systems are turning on. We should have everything ready to go in about 6 hours. 6 hours, Lisa said with frustration in her voice. The Quellans do not have 6 hours. They are dying right now. Get me a link to Commander Price. Nathan appeared on the communication screen a few moments later. Captain Grant, I know what you are thinking, but we cannot jump into battle before we are ready. It would be too dangerous. Commander, with all respect, those people are being killed as we speak. The Victory is ready to fight right now. Let me go help them. When the rest of the fleet is ready, you can follow us there." Nathan did not say anything for several seconds. He was thinking hard about the decision. Then he nodded his head. "All right, Captain. You are right. But you will not go alone. The cruiser Phoenix and the frigate Defiance are also ready for combat. Take them with you. And Lisa, show those raiders what happens when they hurt innocent people. Show them what humans are really like." The 3 ships activated their faster-than-light engines and disappeared from normal space. They left behind trails of energy as they jumped toward the Quellan system. Inside each vessel, human crews worked with smooth efficiency. Every person knew their job perfectly. They had trained for years to be ready for moments like this. Humans did not have special mental powers like the Zephrons did. They did not have natural armor on their bodies like the Korthax warriors. But they had something that evolution on Earth had given them. They had the ability to keep going even when they were tired or hurt. They could adapt to almost any situation. And most importantly, they had a stubborn refusal to give up, even when logic said they had no chance of winning. 14 hours passed as the ships traveled through the strange physics of faster-than-light space. Then they arrived at the edge of the Quellan system and returned to normal space. What the crews saw made even the most experienced veterans feel shocked. The Kragnoth fleet was huge. 40 warships surrounded the beautiful blue and green planet below. Their weapons were firing continuously, tearing apart the delicate structures that the Quellans had built in orbit around their world. Pieces of destroyed space stations and habitats floated everywhere. Things that had been homes and art galleries and meeting places were now just broken metal and plastic, drifting in the darkness. On the bridge of the Victory, Lisa studied the tactical information appearing on her screens. 3 ships against 40 enemies. She smiled, but it was not a happy smile. I have faced worse odds before, she said. Jake looked at her with surprise. You have, Captain? When? Lisa kept smiling that cold smile. No, I have not. But there is a first time for everything. All ships prepare to attack using pattern Delta. Let us make sure those raiders notice us. The 3 human vessels increased their speed and flew straight toward the Kragnoth fleet. The pirates detected the approaching ships and started to move. They stopped attacking the planet and turned to face what they thought were easy targets. To the Kragnoth, 3 small ships were nothing to worry about. They would destroy them quickly and then continue stealing from the Quellans. The Kragnoth had no idea what was about to happen to them. The commander of the Kragnoth fleet was named War Chief Tharok. He sat in his command chair and watched the 3 ships getting closer. He felt amused. He had raided 17 different star systems in his career. He had never met any real resistance. Most species surrendered before his fleet even fired a single shot. Fighting was not something most aliens enjoyed or were good at. What kind of ships are those? Tharok asked the crew member who operated the sensors. They are human vessels, War Chief. The sensors show 1 destroyer, 1 cruiser, and 1 frigate. Humans. Tharok had heard stories about them from other raider groups. Some said they were warriors from a dangerous world. Others claimed they never knew when to quit fighting. But Tharok had never actually fought against humans himself. He did not know if the stories were true or just exaggerations. Open a communication channel to them, Tharok ordered. Let us see if they are smart enough to run away. On the Victory, Lisa received the incoming message. An alien face appeared on her screen. It looked like a reptile with scales the color of dried blood. Its eyes showed nothing but contempt and arrogance. Human ship, you are getting in the way of Kragnoth business. Leave this system now or we will destroy you. Lisa smiled, but there was no kindness in her expression. Kragnoth vessel. You are attacking a peaceful civilization that is protected by the galactic community. Stop your attack and leave immediately or we will force you to leave. Tharok made a harsh laughing sound. 3 ships against my entire fleet. You are either very brave or very stupid, human. I'm going to enjoy taking your ships as prizes after I destroy you. Then come and try, Lisa said, and ended the communication. The Kragnoth fleet began to move into attack positions. 10 of their warships broke away from the main group to deal with the human vessels. Tharok believed in using overwhelming force. He wanted to make sure the humans died quickly. What Tharok did not understand was that overwhelming force was something humans knew very well. Every single day on Earth was a battle. Humans fought against strong gravity that tried to pull them down. They fought against weather that could freeze or burn them. They fought against diseases and dangerous animals. Earth did not just create survivors, it created conquerors. Humans had mastered their violent world, and that made them very dangerous to anyone who threatened them or people they cared about. The real battle was about to begin. The Victory fired its weapons first. Human military technology was different from what most other species used in the galaxy. While most aliens relied on plasma energy or laser beams, humans had perfected an older and simpler concept. They used railguns, which were magnetic weapons that shot solid pieces of metal at incredibly high speeds. These metal slugs traveled at a significant fraction of the speed of light, turning simple iron into unstoppable projectiles. The first Kragnoth ship was hit by 3 railgun rounds. They punched straight through the ship's hull. The armor that normally protected the ship from energy weapons might as well have been paper. The metal slugs went through the shields, through the outer armor, through the crew inside, and out the other side of the ship. The Kragnoth vessel exploded in a massive fireball of burning fuel and oxygen. The Phoenix and the Defiance launched their missiles right after. Human missiles were not like the simple explosive rockets that other species used. These missiles were smart. They had small computers inside that could predict where enemy ships would try to dodge. They could resist electronic jamming attempts. They could adjust their path in flight to make sure they hit their targets. And when they finally made contact, they delivered explosive payloads specifically designed to tear through alien ship construction. 2 more Kragnoth vessels went dark and stopped moving. On his command ship, War Chief Tharok stared at his tactical display screen in complete disbelief. 3 of his ships had been destroyed in less than 3 minutes. In his entire career as a raider, he had never seen anyone fight like this. The humans did not make threats or try to negotiate. They did not waste time with formal declarations of war. They simply started killing with brutal efficiency and precision. All ships, focus all your fire on those human vessels. Destroy them immediately. The 7 remaining Kragnoth ships in the attack group opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space with bright green and yellow fire. Energy beams created lines of pure power that could melt through most materials. All of this destructive force was aimed at the space where the human ships had been just moments before. But the humans were no longer there. Their ships moved with agility that seemed impossible for vessels of their size. They twisted and turned through the incoming fire, dodging the plasma bolts and energy beams with precise movements. Most species in the galaxy built their ships to be comfortable for the crews inside. They used artificial gravity systems that kept the interior at a gentle, easy level. This made life on the ships pleasant, but it limited how fast and sharp the ships could turn. Humans built their ships differently. They designed them to match Earth's gravity, which was much stronger. Human crews trained to work and fight at twice the gravity that would crush most other species. This gave human ships an advantage in speed and maneuverability that no one else in the galaxy could match. The Victory spun through a cloud of superheated plasma, its hull heating up, but not breaking. Its railguns continued firing in steady, measured volleys. Another Kragnoth ship took hits to its engine section and exploded. Then another one died when missiles struck its command bridge. The Phoenix used its point defense systems to shoot down incoming missiles while its own weapons carved through another raider ship. The Defiance, the smallest of the 3 human vessels, moved so fast that the Kragnoth weapons could barely track it. It fired missiles that seemed to have minds of their own, finding weak points in enemy armor and exploiting them ruthlessly. 5 Kragnoth ships destroyed. Then 6. The remaining 4 ships in the attack group tried to retreat back to the main fleet, but the humans gave them no chance. The Victory accelerated forward and cut off their escape route. More railgun fire, more missiles, more explosions. War Chief, we have new contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel. The sensor operator's voice shook with fear. Multiple signatures detected. It is a human fleet. Tharok felt something he had not experienced in many years. He felt genuine fear. He had been so confident just minutes ago. Now he was watching his ships die one by one, and an entire fleet of these terrifying Deathworlders was arriving. Space itself seemed to tear open as 144 human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They appeared in perfect formation, creating a wall of metal and firepower. These were ships that had been built with a single purpose in mind. They existed to protect humanity, and anyone humanity chose to defend. Commander Nathan Price stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance, the largest ship in the human fleet. Around him, officers worked at their stations, coordinating the movements of every vessel in the armada. This was the biggest human military force that had ever been assembled in alien territory. All vessels are reporting ready status, Commander. Kelly Harper spoke from her communication station. She had transferred to the flagship specifically for this operation. Nathan nodded. Open a communication channel to the Kragnoth fleet. Broadcast it on all frequencies so everyone can hear. When the channel opened, Nathan spoke with calm but absolute authority. Kragnoth vessels, this is Commander Nathan Price of the Human Defense Fleet. You have committed an act of war against a peaceful civilization. You have murdered innocent people who never harmed you. You have exactly one opportunity to save yourselves. Power down all your weapons immediately and prepare to be boarded by our forces. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why humanity earned the name Deathworlders. Choose now. On the Kragnoth command ship, War Chief Tharok looked at his tactical display. His 40 ships were now facing more than 140 human warships. He had just watched 3 human vessels destroy 10 of his best ships without taking any damage themselves. The numbers were impossible. The situation was hopeless, but Tharok was Kragnoth. His entire species was built on the idea of strength and conquest. Surrendering was not part of their culture or their nature. To surrender would be to admit weakness, and weakness was the worst thing a Kragnoth could show. All ships form attack formation. We are Kragnoth warriors. We bow to no one. We will fight until our last breath. On the Vengeance, Nathan heard the response and sighed quietly. He had hoped the Kragnoth would be smart enough to surrender. He had given them a chance to save their lives. But they had chosen death instead. All ships in the fleet weapons are now free to fire. Rules of engagement are active. Show them no mercy and no quarter. What happened next was not really a battle. It was more like an execution. It was the difference between trained soldiers and pirates who relied on fear. It was the difference between a coordinated military force and a group of raiders who had never faced real opposition. The human fleet moved forward as a single unified entity. Every ship knew exactly what to do. Every crew had trained for years for moments like this. Railguns fired in synchronized volleys that created walls of metal moving at near light speed. No shield technology in the galaxy could stop them. Missiles launched in waves, hundreds of them streaking through space toward their targets. Point defense systems created fields of fire that destroyed any Kragnoth projectiles that got close. The Kragnoth fought back with everything they possessed. Their plasma cannons fired continuously. Energy beams carved through empty space. But human ships were built to take punishment. They had redundant systems that kept working even when primary systems failed. Their armor was designed to burn away layer by layer, absorbing damage that would cripple other vessels. Their crews were trained to repair holes and fix damage while still under attack. The battle that the Kragnoth expected to win had turned into a slaughter, and they were on the losing side. The Kragnoth ships tried desperately to break through the human formation, but it was useless. Everywhere they turned, there were more human vessels waiting with weapons ready. The raiders had built their reputation on attacking weak targets and running away when real resistance appeared. But there was nowhere to run now. The humans had surrounded them completely. On the destroyer Victory, Captain Lisa Grant watched as the main battle unfolded around her. Her ship and the Phoenix and Defiance had rejoined the larger fleet. Now they fought as part of a coordinated whole, each ship supporting the others. She could see the Kragnoth command ship trying to escape toward the edge of the system. Helm, set a pursuit course for that command ship. Do not let it get away. The Victory's engines flared bright blue as it accelerated. The ship closed the distance in just seconds. Lisa had no intention of destroying the command ship completely. Not yet. First, they needed information from the Kragnoth leader. They needed to know where the other raider fleets were hiding. They needed to find out which other systems the Kragnoth had attacked. Target their engine section only. Disable them, but keep the crew alive for questioning. The Victory's railguns fired with surgical precision. The metal slugs hit exactly where they were aimed, tearing apart the command ship's propulsion system. The Kragnoth vessel went completely dead in space, floating helplessly with no power and no way to move. War Chief Tharok and his crew were trapped inside their own ship. Around the Quellan homeworld, the battle was reaching its conclusion. 27 Kragnoth ships had been completely destroyed, turned into clouds of debris and burning fuel. 10 more were heavily damaged and drifting without power. The remaining 3 ships had stopped fighting and were sending surrender signals as fast as they could. The entire engagement had lasted only 23 minutes from the moment the human fleet arrived. 23 minutes to completely destroy a raider fleet that had terrorized peaceful systems for years. And the human casualties were exactly 0. Not a single human ship had been destroyed. A few had minor damage that repair crews were already fixing, but that was all. Commander Nathan Price stood on the observation deck of the Vengeance, looking down at the beautiful blue and green planet below. He could see the orbital structures that the Kragnoth had damaged. Some were destroyed beyond repair, but many could be rebuilt. Most importantly, the Quellan people were alive. They had survived. Messages were flooding in from the planet's surface. The Quellans were sending transmissions filled with gratitude and joy and disbelief. They had thought they were going to die today. They had called for help, expecting no one to come. Instead, the humans had arrived and saved them. Kelly Harper walked up to Nathan carrying her electronic tablet. "Commander, we are receiving communications from all across the galaxy. The Velcorians want to know what happened here. The Zephyrons are asking for details. The Korthax are demanding an explanation. Everyone wants to understand what just took place." Nathan kept looking at the planet. "Tell them the simple truth. The Kragnoth attacked innocent people who could not defend themselves. We responded to their distress call. We eliminated the threat. That is all they need to know." Kelly hesitated before speaking again. "Sir, there is something else. The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session. They want to discuss human military capabilities. Some of the species are expressing concern about our power." Nathan smiled, but it was not a warm expression. "Let them be concerned. Maybe next time innocent beings call for help, those species will think twice before hiding behind technical malfunctions and convenient excuses about jurisdiction." Maybe they will actually do something to help instead of watching people die. Do you think they will change their ways, sir? Nathan shrugged. Some will change, some will not. But that does not matter. We did not do this to change them or teach them a lesson. We did it because it was the right thing to do. Those people down there needed help and we were able to give it. That is reason enough. On the planet's surface, the Quellans were emerging from their shelters and safe rooms. They looked up at their sky and saw the human warships orbiting above them like protective guardians. Ships from a species they had only heard about in rumors and stories. Ships from a world so dangerous that most of the galaxy feared the beings who lived there. But the Quellans were not afraid. They were grateful. They understood something that many other species had forgotten or never knew. The most dangerous warriors in the galaxy had chosen to protect them, and that made all the difference between life and death. Back in human space far beyond Mars, where the Death Fleet had slept for decades, the message was spreading. Crew members who had just woken up were hearing about the battle. Support staff were reading the reports, and everyone was feeling the same thing. Pride. Pride that when innocent people called for help, humanity had answered. Pride that they had made a difference. On War Chief Tharok's disabled command ship, the Kragnoth leader sat in his chair staring at nothing. His entire fleet was gone. Decades of raiding, of conquest, of taking what he wanted from the weak, all ended in less than half an hour. He had underestimated the humans completely. He had thought they were just another soft species that would negotiate and debate. Instead, they had been ruthless and efficient killers who gave no second chances. Human soldiers in armored spacesuits were cutting through his ship's hull to board it. Soon he would be their prisoner. The great War Chief Tharok defeated and captured by Deathworlders. The shame was almost worse than death would have been, but there was something else mixed with the shame. There was a new emotion that Tharok had rarely felt. Respect. The humans had given him a chance to surrender honorably. They had warned him clearly what would happen if he refused, and when he chose to fight, they had crushed him without hesitation or mercy. That was the way of warriors. That was how battles should be fought. Perhaps the stories about Deathworlders were not exaggerations after all. Perhaps humanity really was as dangerous as the rumors claimed. Tharok had learned that lesson too late to save his fleet, but he would remember it for the rest of his life. Across the galaxy, in council chambers and government buildings and military headquarters, other species were receiving the news. A human fleet had appeared in the Quellon system and destroyed a Kragnoth raider armada in minutes. The humans had suffered 0 losses. They had moved with coordination and efficiency that no one had seen before. And they had done it to save a species they barely knew. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted. Everyone could feel it. Humanity was no longer the new species that others could ignore or dismiss. They were a major force now, perhaps the strongest military power in known space. And unlike many previous dominant species, the humans seemed to actually care about protecting the weak. The Galactic Council would have much to discuss in the coming days. But for now, in the Quellon system, there was only relief and gratitude. The nightmare was over. The raiders were defeated, and the Deathworlders had proven that they were not monsters to be feared, but guardians to be welcomed. On the Vengeance, Nathan prepared to give his next orders. There was still much work to do. Prisoners to process, intelligence to gather, repairs to coordinate, and eventually a council meeting to attend where he would have to explain human actions to species who had refused to act themselves. But that could wait. For now, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had done good work today. They had saved lives, and they had sent a message to everyone in the galaxy who preyed on the innocent. That message was simple and clear. The Deathworlders were watching, and they would always answer the call. 3 weeks after the battle, Commander Nathan Price stood in front of the Galactic Council. The council chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of different species. Today, every single seat was filled. Every eye was focused on Nathan and the human delegation standing behind him. The Velcorian ambassador spoke first. His body was made of crystal that flickered with nervous light. Commander Price, the council acknowledges that humanity acted to save the Quellon civilization. However, the deployment of such a massive military fleet raises many questions. Many species here are concerned about human intentions and capabilities. We need to understand what your goals are. Nathan looked around the huge chamber, making eye contact with dozens of different alien species. You want to know our intentions? Very well. I will be completely honest with you. Humanity has no interest in conquest or domination. We do not want to rule over other species or take their planets. We have no desire to build an empire. But we also will not stand by and watch while innocent beings are slaughtered, especially when we have the power to prevent it. A Korthax general stood up from his seat. His body was covered in natural armor plating that made him look like a walking tank. You speak of protection and saving lives, but you just displayed military power that equals the combined forces of a dozen major species. How can we trust that you will not use that power against us? How do we know you will not decide to conquer instead of protect? Nathan felt anger rising inside him, but he kept his voice calm and level. With all respect, General, where was the mighty Korthax fleet when the Quellans called for help? Where were your brave warriors when innocent people faced annihilation? You talk about trust, but you have shown that you cannot be trusted to do what is right when it actually matters. You hid behind excuses while people died. The chamber erupted into chaos. Different species started shouting at each other and at Nathan. Some defended their actions. Others accused humanity of being aggressive. The noise grew louder and more confused. Finally, the council chair raised his appendages and called for silence. The chair was an elderly Zephron named Elder Luminor. His crystalline body glowed with soft blue light. Commander Price, the council appreciates your honesty and directness, but you must try to understand our position. Humanity comes from what you yourself call a death world. Your species is physically stronger and more resilient than almost anyone else in the galaxy. Your capacity for violence is remarkable and frankly frightening. We have now seen what you can do when you decide to use force. How can we be certain that you will not eventually turn that violence against us? Nathan was quiet for several long moments. Then he began to speak, and his voice carried clearly to every corner of the massive chamber. You are absolutely right to be cautious about us. Humans are capable of terrible things. We have a bloody history filled with wars and violence. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times over the centuries. Our planet tried to kill us every single day, and we became very good at fighting back. But we learned something important from all that violence and struggle. We learned something that many species in this chamber seem to have forgotten or never knew. He paused to make sure everyone was paying attention. We learned that strength without compassion is just tyranny. We learned that having power means you have a responsibility to use it wisely. We learned that when you have the ability to help someone and you choose not to, you become partly responsible for their suffering. And most importantly, we learned that protecting the weak is not optional if you want to call yourself civilized. Nathan pulled up a holographic image that appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed the Quellan homeworld before the attack. Beautiful floating gardens hung in the sky. Buildings that looked like frozen music rose from the ground. Art installations that had taken centuries to create decorated the landscape. Then the image changed to show the same planet after the Kragnoth raid. Destruction everywhere, gardens torn apart, buildings reduced to rubble, thousands of innocent people dead. This is what happens when those who have power refuse to use it for good. Every single species in this chamber heard the Quellan distress call. Every one of you had the ability to respond and help. But you chose not to because it was not convenient for you, because it was risky, because you decided those people were not your problem. Well, guess what? We decided they were our problem, and we did something about it. Nathan looked directly at the Velkorian ambassador. You call us Deathworlders like it is an insult or a curse, but maybe what this galaxy actually needs is more of that Deathworld mentality. Maybe you need species who understand that sometimes the right thing to do is also the difficult and dangerous thing, that protecting the weak requires courage and sacrifice, that saying no to evil requires the willingness to fight when necessary. The chamber had gone completely silent. Alien species that had ruled their parts of the galaxy for thousands of years found themselves unable to respond. To humans who had only joined the galactic community 37 years ago, Elder Luminor finally broke the silence. His glow pulsed slowly as he thought, "What exactly do you propose we do, Commander Price? How do we prevent this kind of situation from happening again?" Nathan had been hoping someone would ask that question. "I propose a new protocol for the galactic community. When a legitimate distress call is received from any civilization, at least one member species must respond within a reasonable time frame. No more technical malfunctions that conveniently prevent action. No more jurisdictional debates while people die. No more excuses. The galactic community either means something real, or it is just an empty organization that serves no purpose. And what if a species refuses to respond despite this protocol? What happens then?" Nathan smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in the expression. Then humanity will respond in their place. We will always answer the call when innocent beings need protection. That is our promise to every peaceful species in this galaxy. Send out a distress signal and we will come. We will mobilize our fleets if necessary. We will put ourselves between you and whatever threatens you. And we will show anyone who attacks the innocent exactly why Earth produced the kind of beings that frighten everyone else. The vote on Nathan's proposed protocol took several hours. There were arguments and debates and amendments. Not every species supported it. Some thought it was too demanding. Others worried it would obligate them to fight battles that were not their concern. But in the end, the protocol passed with enough votes to become official policy. As Nathan left the council chamber, Kelly Harper walked beside him through the long corridors of the station. "Do you think they will really follow through, Commander? Do you believe they will actually start protecting each other the way they should?" Nathan looked out through a viewport at the stars beyond. "Some of them will change their ways. Some will not. But honestly, it does not really matter what they do. We did not propose this protocol to change their behavior or teach them lessons. We did it because establishing clear expectations was the right thing to do. And if they ignore the protocol next time someone calls for help, then we will come just like I promised. That is what Deathworlders do, Kelly. We survive impossible situations. We adapt to any challenge. We refuse to give up even when logic says we should. And we protect those who cannot protect themselves. Those qualities are our gift to the galaxy, whether the galaxy wants them or not. Back at the Quellan homeworld, reconstruction efforts were well underway. The floating gardens would take many years to fully restore, but the work had begun. The people were alive and safe, and that was what mattered most. They had been saved by warriors from a world so violent that most civilized species could not imagine living there. But the Quellans understood something now. They understood that the most dangerous species in the entire universe had chosen to be their protectors and guardians, and that choice made all the difference between extinction and survival. In the depths of space beyond Mars, most of the human death fleet returned to its cold sleep in the asteroid field. The ships powered down and the crews went back into their suspension chambers. But not all of them. The Victory, Phoenix, and Defiance remained on active patrol status, along with 12 other human warships now permanently assigned to protect the outer systems and respond to emergencies. A message had been sent throughout the galaxy. It was not delivered through official channels or diplomatic communications. It was delivered through action and results. The Deathworlders were watching over the weak and innocent. Anyone who threatened peaceful civilizations would face the consequences. That was the new reality of the galaxy, and everyone would have to adjust to it. 6 months had passed since the battle at the Kelon system. In that time, the galaxy had changed in ways both subtle and obvious. The human defense fleet maintained regular patrols through sectors that had previously seen frequent raider activity. The patrols were not aggressive or threatening. They simply existed as a visible reminder that someone was watching. Captain Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the Victory as it completed another patrol circuit. Her ship had become famous throughout the galaxy as one of the vessels that first engaged the Kragnoth fleet. Other species now knew the Victory by name and reputation. Some viewed it with fear. Others saw it as a symbol of hope. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from a civilian vessel." Lieutenant Jake Morrison looked up from his console. "They say they are being followed by unknown ships that match the profile of pirate raiders." Lisa was on her feet immediately. "Set an intercept course, maximum speed, and send out a general alert to other patrol ships in this sector." The Victory accelerated smoothly, its powerful engines pushing it toward the distress signal. Within minutes, they could see the situation on their sensors. A small cargo ship was being chased by 3 raider vessels. The raiders were closing in for the kill, probably planning to steal the cargo and kill the crew. But then the raiders detected the Victory approaching at high speed. For a moment they continued on their course, perhaps thinking they could finish their attack before the human ship arrived. Then their sensors must have identified exactly which ship was coming. The 3 raider vessels immediately changed direction and fled at maximum speed. Lisa watched them go with satisfaction. They know better now than to stick around when we show up. Hail that cargo ship and make sure they are all right. The cargo ship captain appeared on the communication screen. He was a Velcorian, his crystal body shimmering with relief. "Thank you, human vessel. You saved our lives. We thought we were finished for certain, Just doing our job, Lisa replied with a smile. Stay safe out there, and if you run into trouble again, do not hesitate to call for help. Someone will always answer. This had become the new pattern across the galaxy. Raiders and pirates who had once operated freely were now nervous and cautious. They knew that attacking innocent ships might bring human warships down on them. The Deathworlders had made it clear they would respond to any call for help, and they had proven they could back up that promise with overwhelming force. Back at the Galactic Council station, Elder Luminor was meeting with several other council members in a private chamber. They were discussing the changes that had swept through their civilization in recent months. The piracy rate has dropped by 63% across monitored space. A Zephyron counselor displayed statistical data on a holographic screen. Trade routes that were considered dangerous 6 months ago are now operating with minimal security requirements. The economic impact has been substantial and positive. A Korthax representative spoke up, his voice gruff. Our own patrol fleets have reported a decrease in hostile encounters. It seems that criminal elements are genuinely afraid of attracting human attention. They would rather avoid conflict entirely than risk facing Deathworlder ships. Elder Luminor glowed thoughtfully. The humans have done what we could not do with centuries of diplomacy and negotiation. They have made the galaxy safer simply by existing and being willing to act. Perhaps we have been too focused on avoiding conflict when sometimes conflict is necessary to protect the innocent. But there are still concerns. The Velcorian counselor spoke carefully. Some species worry about becoming too dependent on human protection. What happens if humanity decides to withdraw their fleets? What if they demand payment or political concessions for their service? Elder Luminor considered this. I have spoken extensively with Commander Price and other human leaders. I believe their motivations are genuine. They truly seem to view protection of the innocent as a moral duty, not a bargaining chip. But you raise a valid point. We should not become entirely reliant on any single species for our security. Perhaps it is time we learned from their example. On the Quelon homeworld, the reconstruction was progressing beautifully. The floating gardens were beginning to bloom again. New structures were rising to replace those destroyed in the attack. The people had not forgotten what happened 6 months ago, and they never would. But they were no longer living in fear. A memorial had been constructed in the capital city. It honored those who died in the Kragnoth attack, but it also celebrated the human ships that came to their rescue. The memorial featured a statue depicting a human hand reaching down to lift up a fallen Quelon. The inscription read simply, "When we called, they answered." Commander Nathan Price visited the memorial during a diplomatic tour of Allied worlds. He stood before the statue for a long time, reading the names of those who had died. Kelly Harper stood beside him quietly. "Do you ever wonder if we did enough, sir?" Kelly asked softly. "If we had arrived sooner, some of these people might still be alive." Nathan shook his head. "We did everything we could with the information and resources we had. Yes, people died before we arrived. That is tragic and terrible. But thousands more are alive because we came when we did. We cannot save everyone, Kelly. All we can do is try our best and refuse to give up." A Quelon elder approached them slowly. His skin had the pale color that came with great age. "Excuse me, Commander Price. I wanted to thank you personally for what humanity did for us. My granddaughter was in one of the orbital stations when the attack began. She survived because your ships arrived in time. She is alive today because of your courage." Nathan felt emotion rising in his chest. "I am glad we could help, Elder. Your people deserved better than what happened to them. No one should have to face that kind of violence and terror." The Elder smiled gently. "The galaxy has always been a dangerous place. We knew that. But we chose to focus on beauty and art rather than weapons and war. We thought if we remained peaceful and harmless, others would leave us alone. We were wrong about that. But then you came, and you showed us that it is possible to be both strong and compassionate. That is a valuable lesson." In the years that followed, the galaxy continued to change. More species began to take their defense responsibilities seriously. Patrol fleets increased in size and capability. The Galactic Council established rapid response teams that could assist endangered civilizations. But through all these changes, humanity remained the backbone of galactic security. The Death Fleet stayed mostly in reserve, sleeping in the asteroid field beyond Mars. But everyone knew it was there. Everyone understood that if a major threat emerged, those ships would wake up and humanity would mobilize its full military strength. That knowledge alone was enough to deter most potential aggressors. Captain Lisa Grant eventually received her own command of a larger vessel, a heavy cruiser called the Guardian. She continued to patrol the space lanes, protecting merchant ships and responding to distress calls. She became one of the most respected officers in the human fleet, known for her tactical skill and her unwavering commitment to protecting the innocent. Lieutenant Kelly Harper was promoted to commander and given her own ship, the destroyer Hope. She followed in Nathan's footsteps, believing that humanity had a special responsibility to use their strength for good rather than conquest. As for Nathan Price, he eventually retired from active military service and became humanity's ambassador to the Galactic Council. He spent his remaining years working to improve cooperation between species and ensuring that the lessons learned from the Quellan crisis were not forgotten. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts and challenges. Pirates still existed, though in much smaller numbers. Political tensions between species sometimes flared into disputes. But the fundamental nature of galactic civilization had changed. The weak were no longer helpless. The innocent had protectors. And everyone knew that if they called for help in genuine need, someone would answer. Humanity had not set out to become the guardians of the galaxy. They had simply responded to a call for help because it was the right thing to do. But in doing so, they had proven something important. They showed that being from a death world did not mean you had to be cruel or aggressive. It meant you had the strength to protect those who could not protect themselves, and that made all the difference.